recently, but it's just gone. So I went on eBay and ordered this copy. I wanted a copy that was like the one I had printed like in the 90s with this cover on it. I was able to find this one in pristine condition, and it was only like $5. It is in such good condition. I am so happy that I found this. I am currently rereading this, and it was written in the early 80s. So there are obviously some things that didn't age well, but it is still such a lovely, nostalgic story. Just a heads up, I'm probably not going to be reading a description for all of these books, simply because I'm not sure how long I'm going to be able to film for today, and I really want to get this video filmed today. So just so you know, the next 5 or 6 books are all from the same series, and I'm going to do my little story time right now before I introduce them and talk about them. I thought I would maybe do a little bit of mic brushing while I talk about this. When I was in middle school, or junior high, as some people might call it, there was a class that was offered to 4 students. Oh my god, my ring is... Anyway, there was a class that was offered to 4 students every semester. It was essentially kind of like an internship, or I guess my school getting some free labor from the students. 3 kids would get to work in the office, and 1 child got to work in the library. Everyone wanted to get the office job, but I really wanted to get the library one. What we had to do was draw straws, and the shortest straw picked last. And guess who got the shortest straw? But that was okay, because I knew that nobody else wanted the library job. So I got to work in the library for 1 semester while I was in 8th grade. It was the highlight of my middle school career. It was absolutely the best class that I ever had. I essentially just learned how to do everything library related. I learned how to check books out, how to check them in. I learned about the Dewey Decimal System and how to reshelve all of the fiction and nonfiction books. The time that my library class was scheduled was directly after our lunch. And if you remember anything about junior high lunch, it was absolute chaos. It was so nice for me to have that hour after lunch of just quiet and relaxation. I was essentially on my own for that entire class period. There was the librarian that worked in the library, but she pretty much left me to my own devices and would work in her office the whole time. was just such a delight for me. I also got to see what my other classmates were reading and was introduced to a lot of new books that way. I was also introduced to a lot of new books while I restocked the shelves, and that is how I found all of the books that I am about to show you. Are you ready? Because I'm very excited. I first came across the R.L. Stine Fear Street books while restocking books in my school's library. This one in particular is the very first one that I ever read, and I remember it literally blowing my 8th grade mind. This is called Cat, and I will read you the description for this one. Marty never liked the cat. It always got in the way at basketball practice, but he never meant to kill it. Now Marty thinks he's going crazy. He sees cats wherever he goes. He has nightmares about them. He knows they want revenge. Too bad Marty doesn't have 9 lives, because his first one is almost over. So I obviously read Goosebumps books when I was a child, and when I came across the rack of Fear Street books, I was very intrigued. This is the first one that I picked up and borrowed because Cat. I was an 8th grade girl, of course. I remember reading this and being like, oh my god, people are dying in this book. And I'm reading about it. This is wild. It's so silly now, thinking about it, but it really, I was not expecting it. I thought these were just going to be like scary stories. I didn't realize they were going to be like real life horrifying circumstances, but I read this one and was completely hooked. This book in particular was a little more difficult to track down. All of the other ones that I bought on thrift books were all between $5 and $7, but I had to buy this one on Pango Books, and I paid $20 for it. $20. But this book is so nostalgic for me. because I don't remember it as much as the other ones, but I remember this cover always really caught my attention. The next book I got is another one with a really iconic cover. This is Lights Out. I remember this one really standing out in my mind too. are and where they live, and they have nowhere to call for help. I am really looking forward to rereading these books and seeing if I still like them after all these years. I feel like these books were a gateway for a lot of people, my age, like millennial age, into horror and thriller books. And obviously, I would think it starts with Goosebumps, and then it moves on to Fear Street, to Christopher Pike books, and then on from there. I think a lot of people have that similar experience. So I hope you enjoyed my little story about working in my middle school library. I'm sure I would have come across these books on my own adventures into the library, but I thought that you guys would like to hear about my time in the library. I wonder if my school still offers that to students, or if other schools offer similar classes. Did any of your schools offer something similar like that? I would love to know. We have 2 books left. One of them I never even read, but I'm still considering it a nostalgic book, and I'll explain why. This is Lois Duncan's I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the book that I have not read, but I loved this movie so much when I was a teenager. I didn't even realize that it was a book. Had I realized it was a book, I definitely would have read it. When I purchased all of my Fear Street books, this was recommended to me. I was like, wait a minute, like the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I did some Googling and found out that she wrote this book first, and then they made the movie based on the book. If you have seen the movies, they are pretty violent teen slasher movies. And apparently this book is more of a thriller. I also read that Lois Duncan was actually a little upset at how violent they made the movie. I Know What You Did Last Summer and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer were 2 of my favorite movies when I was a teenager, and I obviously love thriller books, so I'm really excited to read this and see what I think about it. I figured I would just include it in my nostalgic book haul because it is a nostalgic movie for me, and I do really wish I would have read this book at the time. If you have read this, please let me know if you liked this. We are moving on to the last book. This one is very random, but this is The Dark Fields by Alan Glynn. This is the book that the movie Limitless was based on. I think Matthew McConaughey is in that, and it might have come out in like 2011. I've never even much that I read it like 3 times. But if we're being honest, I don't remember anything about this book besides what the premise is. I don't remember how it ends. I just remember really loving it at the time. I had a very random memory about this book about a month ago, and I was like, okay, I gotta see if I can find a copy of it, because I'd really like to read it again and see if I actually still like it. I looked up The Dark Fields, and apparently after the movie came out, they reprinted this book, and it wasn't very easy to find an actual copy of The Dark Fields. It was called something else. I can't remember if they reprinted it under the name Limitless or not, but I had to look around eBay to find a nice copy of The Dark Fields. I think I paid like $25 for this copy, and it is in amazing